Hello, everyone. This is Coach Alison. Welcome to the Core and Hips recorded workout. As always, we recommend you've warmed up before you start this video. So either click the link to the warm-up or pause this video and do your own warm-up if you haven't already done so, and then come back when you're ready. We also recommend that you have water close by, and if you wish, to put some music on in the background to help get you through this workout. I'm going to go through all of the exercises that we're going to do today just quickly, and then we'll get started. So the first one is this wood chopper on the left. A wood chopper activates your obliques, which are the core muscles that essentially go from your hip to your opposite shoulder. There's a few other ways they go, but basically they go diagonally in your abdomen. If you're doing the variation on the right, it's this standing Pallof press. So for this one, either way, you will need a dumbbell. The second one of this is a three-way hip activation. So hip flexion, hip abduction, and then hip extension. You'll need a mini band for that. Or the modified version here is just doing it without a mini band. Then we're going to take a break on this black screen and do it all again. Then our second circuit is going to be on the floor today, or if you don't want to get on the floor, we have standing or seated options for you. The first one is either a thoracic extension or a wall Superman. The second one is either a side plank with a leg lift or a wall side plank with a leg lift. Then you're going to do a tabletop limb tap variation or a supported airplane. And finally, you're going to end with a 3-part hollow hold or a seated modified hollow hold. So we will go through each circuit 3 times, and I will take you through the whole thing. We are getting started in 3, 2, 1, and time is on with that wood chopper. So with this wood chopper, you want your feet about shoulder width apart, maybe a bit wider, wherever's comfortable for you. You're taking the dumbbell from one knee, outside one knee, twisting up like you're placing something over your head on a shelf above your other shoulder. So if you're going outside your right knee, you're going to twist up to above your left shoulder. You want your feet to stay facing forward mostly. You don't want them to twist. Go ahead and switch to the other side. If you're doing the Pallof press, you're just going to keep Pallof pressing. Either way, I want you to feel like you're sucking your core in a little bit toward your spine so that you have core activation this entire time. The Pallof press on the right, this ends up being a lot of shoulder if you do it with a dumbbell, so make sure it's a light dumbbell. You can also do it with no dumbbell at all. We are going to stop that there. Go ahead and find your mini band or do this 3-way hip activation without a mini band. Time is on, starting with hip flexion, going into hip abduction, which is a straight leg out to the side, and then finishing with hip extension, which is heel back behind you. Every time you move your leg, you really want the movement to be coming from the hip socket. So you want to feel like the head of the femur is moving within the socket of the hip, not like the pelvis is hitching or posteriorly or anteriorly tilting. So try and keep your hips, your pelvis stable, and just move the leg. We'll get started on the other side. Go ahead and switch your band if you need it. And we've started the other side. So again, keeping your core engaged will help keep your pelvis stable. It's like if your pelvis was a bucket of water. You don't want the water to slosh back and forth or side to side every time you move your leg. So if that means you get less range of motion, that's okay. We are really looking for that lower ab activation, deep ab activation, and not the movement of the pelvis. And go ahead and take a rest. We'll take about a 30-second rest here. good time to find some water. And we'll do all of that again. We'll go through the wood choppers and the three-way hip activation. We'll get started in 5 seconds here, finding a dumbbell or maybe opting to do it without a dumbbell. 3, 2, 1, and start with that wood chopper or that Palloff press if you're doing the variation on the right. Either way, feet are about shoulder width apart. In that wood chopper, I want your feet to stay facing forward, and you'll really feel the activation of that diagonal ab chain. If your feet twist when you twist up, you aren't actually getting much rotation and you aren't activating the abs in that rotational way. Go ahead and switch legs or switch directions if you're doing the wood chopper. And if you're doing the Palloff press, because it's our second time through, I'm not doing this on the video, but you can opt to do a rotation one way or the other way, as long as you feel safe doing this. So if you have really bad osteoporosis in your spine, obviously don't do a rotation. But if you want to make it a bit harder, that is an option. Go ahead and stop that there. Find the mini band for your three-way hip activation, and time is on. We're going hip flexion, that's knee up to the sky, hip abduction, a straight leg out to the side, and hip extension, which is your heel back behind you. Thinking about that pelvis being a bucket of water or a bowl of water, and not tipping the water forward when you extend your leg back, not tipping the water backwards when you bring your knee up, and not tipping the water to the side when you abduct your leg. If you want less resistance, go ahead and do it without the band. If you want more resistance, you can always find a harder band. And go ahead and switch to the other leg, whether you're doing the variation on the right or the left. And as always, only go to a range that feels comfortable for you. Obviously, I can't see you on the other side of the screen. You want to make yourself better, but you never want to go into the point of pain that's going to last past this workout or maybe past tomorrow. And so only go as far out or as far up as you feel good. If you need to go a lesser range of motion today, that is okay. And rest there. We'll do that one more time before we go on to the floor circuit. But first, a 30-second break. Finding some water, maybe taking a few deep breaths. And we'll get started in 5 seconds. So finding that dumbbell for either the wood chopper or the Palloff press. And 3, 2, 1, go. With the wood chopper or that Palloff press, again, if you want to add that rotation in the Palloff press, once your hands are out straight in front of you, hold the dumbbell up. Rotate from your core left, rotate from your core right, and then bring your arms back in. Only if you can rotate. If you feel like your back is not up for rotating, just do the Palloff press. Go ahead and switch sides if you're doing the wood chopper. Again, going from about your knee to reaching up like you're placing something on a shelf. Your gaze should follow the dumbbell here, and you should feel a stretch from your opposite hip to your opposite hand. You're getting all of that diagonal oblique sling. And if you can't get your shoulders overhead, you can still do the wood chopper and just stop before you get overhead. We are switching into the three-way hip activation, finding that mini band. We'll get started in 3, 2, 1, and go. keeping that core engaged. This is a core and hip workout, so you'll hear me talk about the core a lot, but even in non-core and hip workouts, you hear me talk about the core a lot because the core is what allows you to transfer force from your lower body into locomotion or into movement of like throwing or catching or carrying. The core is so vital to movement in everyday life. And we're going to switch to the other foot. So go ahead and switch. When you lift your knee up, think about lifting kind of from your belly button, like your belly button is lifting up. And that because of that, your knee is lifting up, not so much lifting with just your hip flexor. You will get your hip flexor a bit because you're lifting your knee up, but we're trying to think of lifting with our deep abs. When you lift your leg to the side, much the same, you'll feel both your TFL in the front of your hip and your glutes in the back of your hip, but we want you to think about feeling your glutes more than your TFL. You have 3 seconds left here, and then you get a rest before getting onto the floor. Go ahead and rest. When we come back after 30 seconds, you'll either be on the floor or on a standing and seated variation if you don't want to get down on the floor. And we're going to get started. The first one here is a thoracic extension on the ground or a Superman on the wall. For this thoracic extension, I want you to place your hands on top of each other, put your forehead into your hands, actively press your forehead into your hands and your hands into your forehead, and then feel like you're lifting from between your shoulder blades. I don't want you to lose the connection between your forehead and your hands because that means you're lifting with your neck and not with your thoracic extensors. If you're doing the Superman here on the wall, trying to keep a relatively straight posture as you raise one arm and the opposite leg off the wall, hold for about 2 seconds and then come back down to the ground or to the wall. We are switching into a side plank either on the wall or on the ground. Here, I want your elbow right below your shoulder, whether it's the wall or the ground. And on the ground, your knee, hip, and shoulder aligned. On the floor, it'll be your foot, hip, and shoulder. If you're up for the challenge, add that leg lift in. If you want to start with just doing a side plank and holding it for 30 seconds, that is a-okay too. Go ahead and switch sides. What we are looking for here is relatively straight line, a connection between your heel, your hip, and your shoulder. You can see Tessa and I are both a little bit twisted. Ultimately, your body's your own. It's going to do what it wants, but you want to activate your glutes to push your hips forward so that they're mostly aligned with your shoulders and your knee or your foot. We just don't want a lot of twisting, like your shoulders coming forward or your hips going back. Go ahead and switch. Here, we're going to go into a tabletop with a limb tap. So if you're doing the variation on the ground, you want to keep your hips and shoulders relatively stable as you tap one arm, one knee, and then the other knee. Come back to center and switch. A big mistake here we see a lot is you just rush through tapping them all, and then you kind of like fall back onto your all fours. If you can only get through tapping one limb before you have to reset, that's okay. What we're looking for is the control and the stable alignment between the pelvis and the shoulders, rather than actually tapping the limbs. Go ahead and switch. Here we are doing a modified hollow hold. The first one, if you're on the ground, you're going to have those legs out in a double leg hold, keeping the lower back on the ground. So if your legs are so low that you can't keep the lower back on the ground, lift your legs up a bit. Go ahead and place your feet flat on the ground, knees going up straight into the sky, hands extend above your head. And now you are going to lift with your upper abs so that your shoulder blades are off the ground, your head is off the ground, and hold that there for another 15 seconds. And then we are going to go into the full hollow hold. Kick your feet up into the air to meet your hands, and then slowly lower your feet down and your hands back past your head so your hands are overhead until your whole back is touching the ground. And go ahead and rest. We're going to do a 30-second rest here for you. Good time for some water. And then we'll do all that one more, well, 2 more times actually, but we'll do it all again. Getting started here in 5 seconds. So on the ground for that thoracic extension or on the wall for that Superman. 3, 2, 1, and go. Again, thoracic extension, hands are stacked, forehead is pressing into the hand, and you really feel like someone is lifting you from between the shoulder blades. You can see it is not a big movement. You are not really jamming through your upper back. You're just trying to activate the muscles that go from kind of the base of your neck to the bottom of your rib cage. For this Superman, thinking about lifting and lowering the opposing arm and leg at the same time. So having them in sync will get the whole chain of muscles from one fingertip to the opposite heel firing smoothly. And go ahead and switch into a side plank, whether you're on the wall or the ground, elbow beneath your shoulder, hips, shoulders, and knees aligned. You'll really feel it in the lower abs. You might feel it in the upper abs too. And if you're up for it, add that leg lift in, and then you'll definitely feel it in the upper abs and that upper glute. Pushing both glutes together or squeezing both glutes together to push the hips forward to keep your shoulders, hips, and knees aligned is a good thing to think about when you're getting tired. And go ahead and switch sides, but you're all superstars, so of course you're not getting tired yet. On this side for another 10 seconds. Keeping those glutes engaged, lifting with your bottom abs. And coming out of that, we're going into tabletop or a chair supported airplane. This chair supported airplane is actually to activate your hamstrings, your triceps, a little bit your rhomboids in that row. It's not so much about the balance. Either way, if you're on the chair or the ground, sucking your belly button into your spine slightly and trying to keep your hips stable as you lift a leg or lift both knees. Again, on the ground, we're looking for control. We're not looking for speed. So if you need to only tap one limb, bring your hands back. Or if you need to tap your knees down between each set, that is okay. Go at whatever pace is good for you. And we're stopping that there, rolling onto your back for a hollow hold, starting with that double leg lift, keeping your legs as low as you can before your lower back comes off the ground. For the seated variation, we're doing it's kind of like a cross between a hollow hold and a sit-up. And people on the ground, you're going into arms above your head. So your hands are extending past your ears. You're doing a crunch. People seating in the seated variation, go ahead and switch sides. And the hollow hold people on the ground, bring the feet and the hands up using your whole abdominal column to keep your limbs up, your chest or your shoulders off the ground. We're holding for 3 more seconds and rest. We have 1 more round of that, and then you are done your core and hips workout. We'll get started in 5 seconds here. 3, 2, 1, and we're going into that thoracic extension or the Superman. For the thoracic extension, another thing we often see is your legs coming off the ground. That's okay. It's often just because we equate a thoracic extension with a whole back extension like a Superman. We aren't asking you to do that here, but if your legs do come off the ground, that's okay, as long as your lower back isn't feeling sore from it. Again, the movement is fairly small. We're not looking for huge movements. We're looking for controlled execution. 3, 2, 1, and switching into that side plank. Time is on. Go ahead with the side plank leg lift, or just the side plank, either on the ground or the wall. You've got this. This is your start of your last round of side planks. Nobody's favorite exercise. Although if you're doing this and it is your favorite exercise, make sure you send me an email and let me know, because you'll probably be the first person I've met that side planks are their favorite exercise. Go ahead and switch sides, making sure your elbow is right below your shoulder. If for some reason it hurts to be on your elbow and you'd rather be on your hand, go ahead and be on your hand. I think it makes it harder. You need a little bit of extra stabilization, but everybody's bodies are different. So you do what you can do. 3, 2, 1, and we are switching into that tabletop with 3-limb tap or into the chair supported airplane. Really thinking about, in either variation, having that dowel on your back, your head, shoulders, and sacrum/bum in line. Keeping the core engaged. It's like if you have a precious jewel in your belly button, you're sucking it up. You don't want it to drop out of your belly button. Three, 2, 1, and moving into our final exercise of this workout, the hollow hold. Go ahead and find a place with those double leg holds. Or if you're doing the seated variation, one hand is behind your head. You're doing a bit of a sit-up with a leg extension. And go ahead and put your feet down on the ground. Arms extend past your ears. Lift your shoulders off the ground, activating those upper abs if you're on the ground. And switch sides if you're seated. Bringing your feet up to meet your hands. We're going into the full hollow hold here for the last 15 seconds. Only hold your legs as low as you feel your lower back can be on the ground. If you feel like you want to bend your knees and have them lower, that's okay. Go ahead and rest. We are done. You made it. Congrats, core and hips. You might be sore tomorrow. You might be sore right now, but that's okay. Your core and your hips will thank you. And I thank you for coming.